Hello and welcome to Inside News. This is Dale Matthews. I'm joined by Mike Jones and also by Raymond Smith that's going to have a special report from IV about what's happening out there that relates to the rest of the world. But first, we're just going to kind of say hello.
Right.
Hello.
Isn't that where the Inside News newsroom is located?
Yes.
So it'll be live from the newsroom with Raymond Smith.
It's always amazing
and
to me.
And then Raymond does this little stand-up.
The TV stations will go, and now we're going live to the newsroom. It's like 5 feet away. They got a camera pointed at somebody over in the corner. Well, from here, the perspective is completely different. It is? So, anyway, Mike, as you know, along with a lot of you, in fact, if you haven't received your ballot here pretty soon, he's already filled out his ballot. He sent it in. And he's voted on various things about what he wants and doesn't want. His votes are, I think, likely to be somewhat similar to yours watching the show. That's a possibility. What do you think, Mike?
Okay, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Okay.
I don't know
that we're being watched constantly by people from the outside, including federal agencies. We know that. I mean, they're not making that up. Of course, they should be watching this show. We are some of the people that are opinion leaders in this area. And if you know of another political analysis show that looks at trends and watches the media and talks about pluses and minuses of everybody on all sides, you just send us an email and we'll go take a look at it, right, Mike?
Okay, sure, whatever you say.
There's a little delay tonight. So, by the way, wanted to mention something to you before we go much further. Mike, if you'll call up your the email address here, I'm going to give folks a notice so that they can send us an email. There are a number of signs for candidates that are out on the roads, and hopefully not just in someone's backyard next to the bird bath. And people are putting them up. Well, it's just about time, the last moments, because some people have their ballot already, to put such a sign up for anybody. Here's an offer that we'll make at Inside News. I didn't talk about this with Mike, but I don't think he'll object. And that is, and here's the email address. If you have a desire to put up a sign for any candidate, you just send us an email if you're a little confused, and not that our viewers are confused, but if you'd like immediate feedback, and we will guarantee you that they will get that email, doesn't matter who it is, and that Mark Kelsey, you want to put up a sign for Mark, good luck with that, okay? And you want to put up that sign, you send us an email here, and we'll make sure that
Dale will guarantee you.
I will guarantee you, because it's an open marketplace of ideas. At least it should be, in my opinion. We're going to see how it's not so much in some places right now, but I will make absolutely sure. Mine, opposition, somebody else, whatever. You want a sign, you send an email to that address, and badcounty@cpros.com. And I will personally guarantee you, and Mike will make sure that I'm doing the right thing, and Ray is going to be all over me too. And we'll make sure that you get a sign, or at least that person that's running has the sign that they know that you're interested in them and you'd like to put up a sign. And notice I'm not just advertising for myself. Ray, go ahead.
Just for the record, I'm not copied on this email account. So Dale will be issuing the guarantee. And, when it comes to any of that, if you didn't get your sign, it wasn't because I didn't do it for you.
Thank you.
And so not knowing... Well, and not knowing, not being privy to any of this email, I won't be able to harangue him about fulfilling his promise to you, to get your sign to you. So Dale will be expediting all of those requests.
And this is the worst of all possible worlds because it's a promise from a potential politician, and you know what those are worth, and also saying that somebody's watching over me, but nobody can watch over me. So, woo-hoo. Yeah, well, we'll make sure. We'll make sure, and it doesn't matter who it is. You want to sign from one of these characters, one of these wonderful folks, and we will be sure that they get the message that you'd like one of their signs. Okay, so we have Raymond Smith on the phone with us this evening, and that's for a very specific reason. Here's the lead up to that. I've sent out hundreds of emails to people who are in the BLM and some of those places that are supposed to have a contract with us. That's the theory. They have a contract with this county and they're not following through on it. And I started thinking, well, let's send it to those specific people and the people who watch over them to make sure that they're supposed to do the right things. And they do collect their emails, and they do look at them. And I thought, well, it'd be better if each and every one of these letters was a physical letter, and all different, each one of them different, maybe with the same tagline at the end. If you're not going to return our land, if you're not going to pay what you owe by contract, then return our land. And I've sent out several hundreds of those. And you can do that too, and we'd be happy to help you with that. And if I'm lucky enough to be one of the people, the county will embark on an effort, not costing an arm and a leg, but to write up such letters, make them, and then you can sign them and send them. And we'll see that, you get help with all that. Happy to do that. Whether it's the county that helps or me personally, I'm thinking that 10,000 letters after 4 years is going to get somebody to pay attention in Washington, D.C. and Portland and a couple other places. At least it's better than sending no letters. So Raymond Smith decided to join in on this effort, and he has sent out a whole bunch of them. And Raymond got rainbow trout, buddy. I mean, he got an immediate response. Tell us about this response, Ray.
Okay, well, yesterday morning, before I headed down to work, I got a call from DC, and it was a special agent with the Inspector General's office in the Department of the Interior. And I'm not sure if this was from a range of the letters or one specific person, because there was several people in the Department of Interior that got letters, but he was assigned apparently this duty to investigate, and called me, and he was unaware of the ONC Act, but had looked it up. And of course, most of the letters had questions dealing with the contract, with these counties. And so he was questioning. He said, well, I've looked this up. And he said, it's an act, it's a law, it's not really a contract. And I said, well, yeah, it is an act and it is a law, but it does constitute a contract that you have with these counties, with the states, for sustainable logging, sustainable funding. That's what it's designed for, is a sustainable revenue flow. And so the question to them is, where do you stand? Where do you go with this? And his specific duty, I guess, is to see if there's any criminal act that's going on, and that's what he's investigating as far as with the ONC Act and I guess the government failing to pay what's in that.
All right.
So
I think it's criminal.
Yeah. Well, we don't. At
Let's
this
convene
point,
a grand jury.
Right. We're not going to know. He's supposed to be getting a hold of me. He wanted an email address, and I said, well, I do have one, but I'm not on the computer all the time. And not one of these people that checks that even daily. So, he's supposed to be calling me back. And there is more specific, he said, more specific places and people to send letters to that he would be sharing with me as well. But at this point, he's supposed to be investigating, and, he has read the act. And apparently with the investigation is to see what's going on with these departments and why the money has stopped. And
right.
Is there another some act that's happened or some law that's passed that we're unaware of that's allowed them to do this, or are they just reneging or violating this act of 1937? So it's a wait and see thing. Wait and see if he actually follows through and calls me back and has more information on it. If not, we'll just continue on.
Yeah, and listen, unfortunately, unelected bureaucrats are not really the best target, in my personal opinion, for this correspondence. I think it's a waste of time, to be honest. This is a political thing. I say, okay, go ahead, copy them on the same email. That's totally fine. But the answer to this is in a political wave that happens where you send information to elected officials, and you get enough people to do that in enough mass for them to take notice. And it may well be beneficial for some bureaucrat to contact them and say, hey, I'm hearing from such and such. That may help add a little bit of fuel to the fire. But some unelected bureaucrat, all he's going to do once he does he was even calling you on definitions. This isn't a contract. This is an act. Well, if you read it, it speaks to a contract, you moron. But that's the exact sort of thing that they'll use to disqualify what you're saying, and just move you along. And
that happens on this show occasionally.
Okay.
But I think about this. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead. Sorry.
What power, though? Hang on a second. What power does an unelected bureaucrat? First of all, the unelected bureaucrat has unquestionable power to tell you to go blow off and not do anything for you at all. Because listen, there's an ideological bent to their little bureaucratic organization. They don't care about your concerns about being paid money. All they do is check with the people. Oh yeah, you're not paying these people. Oh yeah, we're not paying them. And that's that. They don't care. But somebody who is ultimately held accountable to the people, unless that guy can be fired by the input of people sending letters, then you've got, in my personal opinion, very little effect there.
Okay.
Well, that may be. That's the response I've got so far, and like I say, it's a wait and see thing, and I'm not holding my breath on anything because they've managed to, how many years have they not followed through with their own law? So, right. It's this guy, as an investigator and supposedly investigating for criminal acts, didn't even know of the ONC Act as tweeted. So,
yes. So he's thinking, "Oh my God, I'm perhaps busting a big crime here."
Okay, well, all right. So let me jump in.
Besides, it was all new to him, and it's a start. But like I say, I'm not holding my breath on anything because there's different ways to look at it, and it's certainly, as you're looking at it, they can, like I say, they've been violating their own law for several years now, so we'll just have to see.
All right, so here's my response to this. When we turned in Sandy Casanelli and myself, turned in the county commissioners, and we've done it several times, for violations of the ethics laws in Oregon. I didn't expect much, but there are a variety of reasons, which we've talked about. The OGEC did actually go back and say, no, listen, they have been violating the law. Now, this is a thing that's been permitted by the political structure in Oregon for a long time, and they've made sure that there was no progress being made on moving forward on people to do this kind of stuff because they just don't have the will to do so. However, this is better than where we were before, which is they've been found guilty and they've been given a solution. It's not much of a solution, but it's a beginning. Now, here's this guy whose job it is to find out whether the government is violating a law. And he looked, he's, well, this is a law. And then Ray is pointing out to him on the phone and responding. It's a better response than we've gotten from anything so far. And he says, yeah, well, you know, there's something to it. Now, if this guy says, you know, there may be something to this, to the right committee head chairperson, it's a beginning, because now they've got their own staff telling them that they're breaking the law. That's a start.
Here, let me.
Guys, come on.
Yeah. They know they're breaking the law. Listen, let me just clarify. I don't think it's a bad thing that. Listen. I think this guy's response shows that if you start sending letters, you will ultimately get a response.
Now we're talking.
The whole point of this thing is to get people to understand. However, when you complained about the commissioners, you complained to the OGEC, whose job it is to deal with stuff like this. This guy here, Department of the Interior, this is not even their purview.
General's office.
You know, so. Okay. Yes. And okay. So I don't want to be critical of it. What I'm saying is please start writing letters to elected officials. Those are the ones who are ultimately accountable. And guess what? Even though it doesn't seem like they actually do this lately, the responsibility for who spends money, the responsibility for cutting checks lies with the Congress. Okay. I know that they have abdicated that responsibility to the White House, but it is their responsibility to first appropriate and then issue payment to whoever gets it. And
I'd like to hear their explanation. Now that this guy is clued in a little bit, Inspector General's office, right? They're supposed to overlook the people who are paying the bills. And when they look at this and they say, and this guy says, he might say, oh, we're doing everything perfectly. On the other hand, I don't see how he can say that, because they have a law, they have a contract. And my guess is that they're going to look at it and say, you know, we don't seem to be following through with this law and this contract. To me,
yeah. Hold your breath on that one. Hold your breath.
Well, there was some discussion too, because I told him, like, in this county, our last sawmill had closed down, and of course, he didn't know that. He's back in D.C. And a little bit about, you know, the logging that is not taking place. There is no sustainable flow of money that this act calls for. And I laid it on the line as far as how the county is operating, as far as, you know, when this sustainable money was flowing to them, basically they were doing okay. They could care less that the rest of the people here were being put out of work, and you know, because the money was going to them. They were doing all right, and their pay rate would increase, and so on and so forth. And as soon as the federal government decided we're not going to pay these guys anymore according to this law, they really turned on their own citizenry like sharks. You know, now it's up to you to pay this bill that, I mean, you don't have, you know, living wage jobs, but you're going to have to cough up the money anyway. And so, you know, with that, I did tell him too, and I think this is something that is better done from the county itself. I mean, the citizens certainly could do it, but if you have commissioners in there that start addressing the state itself, because half of their counties in the state are O&C counties. Obviously, there's some of them that they've managed to tax their citizens enough that they don't really care about this funding from the federal government. But
That's right.
half the counties in the state have been cut through the federal government. But yet, when you look at these acts or laws that are being passed or being trying to pass in state legislation, is simply to circumvent the will of the public and tax them. What they're really trying to get at is the thing that they don't like is the property tax limitation. That's where the $2 bill came in, and they've always hated that tax limitation. And instead of actually the state, at the state level, going to the federal government saying, hey, well, why are you violating this law? We've got half our state that is being ripped off or being shorted according to your own act. They sit there and craft laws to try to tax you against your will. And you know, they're actually enabling the federal government to continue on with violating this law. So I asked Carl Wilson about that after the last Lipsick meeting where they were the three state reps were there, and and the Bart Sugar, the senator, and you know, it became. What he told me was, well, we're not electing enough Republicans into the state that they won't, it just won't go anywhere. And so that becomes a partisan way to look at it. And I mean, the county itself, your commissioners need to stand up and do something at the state level as well. And like I said, can too, but they're going to more listen to another government than they will.
And you know what, this is a great point that Ray's making, that if the state were on our side in this, and this is the angle that they should be taking on this, is that, hey, you are shorting the funding that you owe the counties in our state. I mean, ultimately it would benefit the state coffers. You know, it would, if they pursued this. But you know what? There's this weird geometry that's going on here, in that they have been feeding the states earmarked funds for a long time with, strings attached that it can only be spent for this, and this. And, the states they're sort of fallen into line. They see the federal government as a superior entity, and they have found their place, and they have gotten in it. And that is, we are subservient. We're not going to make waves with you about anything. Just keep sending us our little earmarked funds, and our state being mostly blue is not for bucking the Washington system. It's not going to do that. They like things just how it is. They get plenty of property tax money out of all the big blue counties in the state. They're just thinking, why can't the rest of these people, why can't they start paying their fair share?
Hey, Raymond, with your permission, I'd like to kind of summarize what's happened here and what hasn't happened here. What has happened here is we started with the legal side, not the legislative side. And I can understand how both of these are important. We started down the legal route. I have a penchant for, at the weekly business session, getting up and saying something they don't expect. And so nobody expected that this kind of complaint about the legal aspects of it in the Inspector General's office would happen. And Raymond has gotten an immediate response on the telephone from someone saying, well, why are you saying this? You're saying that we're violating the law. This could be criminal. Well, he didn't say that, but at least it's a response. And it may not be the perfect thing, but it is coming kind of out of the blue. All of a sudden, now you're being bombarded from the air? Really? And so, or from a submarine? Great. That's my opinion. It's a good start. Mike?
Yeah, the point is that when you take action, you get a response, and
Yes.
that's the thing to take away from this, is that if you sit here on your hands and don't do anything, the outcome of that is guaranteed.
Now
you will
that's
get nothing.
I know.
You will get no response.
Yes.
Well, no. Listen, I'm not being critical of what was done. I'm just being critical of the target, the receiving target there, and so. I just think that people that are ultimately beholden to us. See, you could circumvent this entire lawsuit if you get people in Congress, and this is a political thing. You have to lobby them. What is the richest occupation in this country is lobbyists. They're hanging out around Washington, D.C. And why is that? Because that's where you have to be to influence people in the Congress to do what you want them to do. Well, hello.
Yes, right. And Raymond, thank you for bringing a little ray of sunshine coming from an unusual angle, an immediate reaction. When was the last time you got I've sent out lots of emails to our state legislators and federal legislators. Thank you for your input. Oh, come on. That's not a response. Mm-hmm. This guy called Ray.
Yeah, phone call.
You think that we're doing something illegal? Yeah. All right, I'll take that. I'll take that every day. Thank you very much, Raymond Smith, for sending out the letter. Pretty much identical to the people I've been sending it to, but okay. Super. It's a start.
And Raymond, I want to thank you for taking one for the team and getting on the no-fly list so that we don't have to.
You didn't really have any plans to go to Libya, did you?
I'm okay with that because they've made it so difficult to fly. It's like, I really don't care anymore. I'd rather drive anyhow and just avoid the whole mess. But I would like to point one thing out if I have time. What Mike was saying about the state. I'm not saying, and you can take this however you want. I'm not saying that at the state level that they would be trying to lever the public in order to weaken or do away with certain things with the property tax limitation. Although that's what it looks like when you look at the support you have for some of the legislation, like the $2 bill, where you have other commissioners and stuff that they support it, and that's what they address is the property tax limitation and what a horrible thing it's been for our state. And so, no more than this county would lever the public on a tax levy by not funding the sheriff's department when they have the opportunity. So, that's the way I look at it. Why you can't get any support at the state level or haven't at this point. But I think lobbying the state would be a good starting point as well, because they need to address half the counties in their state in another way than using it as a lever to weaken your property tax limitation. And I really believe that's what their angle is there. But
yeah, thank you. I totally agree. Absolutely. And by adding, a property tax burden to all of these counties, which you mentioned is half of the state, this is not going to be good for the economy. And maybe some of those people up there don't understand that, but maybe it's about time they got a few letters to that effect in Salem.
Now,
I think that's a good plan.
My opinion about this also is it's okay with me if the vice president gets a letter from the Prime Minister of New Zealand or from the director of the National Zoo. I want them to be flooded with as many letters from people saying, wait a minute, you guys aren't following through with your own contract? Is that legal in America? That doesn't bother me. I would love to have them bombarded from every possible angle with us being in the driver's seat and getting back, emails from somebody at the New York Times or something saying, how can they do that?
Well, and listen, there's another target is media outlets like the New York Times and other places. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't be getting inquiries from other people like that. But what I'm saying is not to the exclusion of corresponding with elected officials.
No, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. And Raymond, thank you for your very good point. Thank you for joining us so quickly on this show. And we're going to say good night to you and good luck in the future.
All right.
Thanks, Raymond.
Thank you. And I'll keep you posted on what's going on. So
yes, great,
okay.
Great. Yeah,
yes, make us your one phone call from prison.
Right. Hopefully in the future we won't have to deal with problems like yours ever again.
Yes.
Okay.
Bye, Ray.
Thanks, Raymond.
So, Mike, we do have time left over, not a tremendous amount, but how about if we go with Peggy Goodwin's second or third try here to get anybody at all at the budget committee to listen to her? Here we go.
I'll take Sanity whenever I can get it.
Yes. Here's Sanity for 500. The answer is?
So, Commissioner Heck? The problem stares at us, and all we can really do is stare back.
I love this quote.
Solve anybody's issue. It simply prolongs the inevitable dealing with what needs to be done,
which is raising property taxes.
I don't like the idea of it's not just a matter of robbing Peter to pay Paul. I mean, you're killing Peter to take Paul for a period of an unknown period of time, and then he's going to expire. It doesn't address the issues, and it cripples and severely cripples two programs, if not three, but two at least, rather than trying to address the issue. And I think as a county, as people, we need to address the issue, and we have been fortunate enough. We come up to this wall, and then there is some mysterious development of monies, people will say, and then that we don't have to address it. And instead of addressing the issue, we just simply die one little stroke more. We don't solve any problems. We just have a little less money, and that little less money now is coming to a conclusion at the end of 2016, the fiscal year 16-17. And I think it would be once we as the citizens, once we understand that this truly is the end, I think we as a people will be more than satisfied to rise up and provide solutions that will be more than amenable to all of us. And as was mentioned, that we can, as the budget committee or as the commissioners, we can, if need be, in January, February, or whatever, take and move money. It's not a fixed, done deal completed today as a result of this budget committee. I just don't like the idea of moving it now when we're still, when two departments are very, very weak, and making one department a little stronger and one really weak. So
now here comes the master stroke, in case you missed it last night, from Peggy Goodwin, of all the things that led up to this. Go ahead, Mike.
Before you do that, I have to make a quick note here. Money does not address a problem of a fiscal shortfall.
Right. I love that.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. I've got
Okay.
it. Thank you.
All right. So what Peggy says here, all of this talk using the same Peter and Paul and AK-47s in the streets, and as one of the officials in CJ says, it's a war zone. It's a war zone, and we need more funding, but we're going to make it status quo. They were ordered almost a year ago to come forward with the status quo budget. And well, we can't have solutions because the solutions are, no solution is okay
Not
except
status
the
quo.
solution. Right. That's right. And so Peggy Goodwin then, after all of this stuff, says one sentence, as I remember, maybe two, that makes all of this moot, not mute, Simon Hare, makes it moot. And the response from the commissioners is nothing. You've just got to see this. It's a beautiful little moment. Watch this. This is from Peggy Goodwin coming up here.
I'm not in favor of it. Peggy?
Mr. Chair, I would just like to point out that my motion was not to hire any new deputies. My motion was to put money in reserves so that we can retain the deputies that we already have instead of having to lay them off when the funding runs out.
Good clarification. Thank you very much. Would you call the roll?
Now let's vote.
Yes.
Let's.
Ms. Walker?
No.
Mr. Welch?
No.
Mr. Heck?
No?
Mr. Brenda?
No.
Mr. Hare?
No. Motion fails 5-1.
Mr. Chair, I have an
I'm
alternate.
telling you.
She has an alternate motion.
I move that we establish a separate emergency reserve account for Title I road dollars pursuant to HB 4175 that can only be used for either roads or sheriff's patrols, and which can only be used if there are no other funds available that could be used for.
Brilliant.
It's our suggestion. We said it on the
Yes.
show. I don't know if she,
Yes.
well, I know her husband watches the show. We said set up a separate emergency thing where either roads or the deputies can come in and say, we need part of that. And then whoever wins 2 falls out of 3 gets the money. Okay, here it is. And notice how ready she was. She knew they were going to shut her down. Here's another one. Okay, let's debate this. What do you think the result's going to be?
That sounded fairly complicated, and I wonder if House 45 allows that.
Well, the House Bill 4175 allows these specific funds, Title I road dollars, to be used for sheriff's patrols. Otherwise, they can only be used for roads. So my motion, just to clarify this, is to create a separate account that can be used for either one or the other when there's an emergency and there's no other money. But this money could not be used while there is other money that could be used for either of those. But the money, we're not actually supposed to discuss this without a second, so I will wait.
Well, I appreciate the clarification on the motion. So, floor is open for a second on the motion.
Well, second.
Then moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
Mr. Chair. The way that we currently account for these funds, we commingle the Title I road dollars, which can be used for either roads or sheriff's patrols, with the fuel tax money, which can only be used for roads. The problem with commingling these funds, first of all, it's not a sound accounting practice to commingle funds where the funds from one source can be used for 2 purposes and funds from the other source can only be used for 1 purpose. Last year, when I asked how much money was available to be used that could be eligible under HB 4175 to be used for sheriff's patrols, I was told we didn't really know, but all that we really, because the funds are commingled, but all that we really know is that the funds that we did receive within the last year would be available, and that's where the $500,000 came from.
Great.
So in the future, say 3 years from now, we run out of sources of funding and we say, you know what, I really wish we would do that. We really should take some of those Title I road dollars and use that for sheriff's patrols. How much is available? We don't know because they were all commingled with the fuel tax revenue. Now, here's the thing. If we establish a fund that can be used for either of those purposes and no other purpose, and can only be used as a last resort when no other funds are available to be used for that purpose. It wouldn't take anything away from Public Works, because if we were, say, to have an earthquake next year and we needed all this money to get the matching fund for FEMA money, and there wasn't enough in the Roads and Bridges Reserve Fund, this money would still be available for that, just like it is today.
Ms. Goodwin, the only reason I think the concept is clear in my mind. I think it's probably clear
All right.
in the committees.
I just
And for
want
the
to
sake
point
of time, I think we understand your motion.
Really?
Yeah, you know, he's such a condescending jerk here. You know,
Oh, man.
I just, well, you know what? It's like, you know, thank you, but we've burned up enough time with your stupid little
Yes.
suggestions that we're not going to do anything with, and you know, so now I'm going to brush you off in the rudest. Well, actually, that's actually the most polite they could be. You know, I just. This is frustrating, and this is why we're revolving our government on a national level, and hopefully we're doing that on a local level too. Please understand, let's put people in there who have never been in government before, okay?
Yeah.
You know, I think that this is very important, because the problem is that once you get inside there, and like these people have, and they think that it's great that they understand how things work inside of government. I think that's a huge negative, because it closes your mind to the possibilities, just like this entire board is closed to the ideas that Margaret Goodwin has, which are, I think, fantastic, and are actually trying to address the stated problem, not the one that that actually exists in the county, but what they have stated is the problem, you know, and that is law enforcement funding. You know, they're taking another route. Their actions show that they don't care anything about that. But she's taking them at their word that, hey, you're saying that we have this problem here, this law enforcement fiscal funding problem here. Okay, I'm going to grab that bull by the horns, and here's a solution for you. Oh, no, we're not interested in that. Hello, I mean, are you clear with what's going on here yet? Because it's pretty obvious. I mean, the numerous examples over the past probably 6 months that make it very, very clear these people don't care anything about that. They just want more. They just think that the amount of funding that they get from the citizens is not adequate. And
Yes.
And if you gave them something that they thought was adequate, within a year, they'd be thinking it was inadequate, because they'd be hitting the spending wall again, you know, for that money. So I'm hoping.
Do these people who are on their way out, do you think that they understand that if there's two fiscal conservatives, and I don't mean 1.5, you know what I mean by this, if there's two fiscal conservatives that are in there, we've said several times in this show, the very first action is to be sure to do exactly what she said. Exactly what she said. And that can be done during an emergency. See, they made a big mistake with that. That's a mistake. During an emergency, that kind of emergency action can be taken. And so if that is actually set aside, is the sheriff, and now we do have to ask ourselves this question, sorry, is he bright enough to actually say, you know, that's helpful? And then we put that stuff in that emergency, that combined emergency fund. And now the problem is, for everybody that has an alternative, the actual goal is that helps alleviate the problem. Now, what are they going to do?
Yeah. Well, you know what? And I have a feeling that if the board goes south from their perspective, and they don't get the right type of people coming back in come January, they're probably going to do something to that money to make sure that it can never be put back, that it can never fund the sheriff. They'll find some bridge they have to replace.
At the end of the first budget meeting, this go around, they said, well, we haven't put that money in Peter's hands yet. We haven't done that. We're going to do that at the next meeting. And then just before the next meeting that morning, Cheryl said, well, we've already done that. You have?
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Oh, what's coming? It's going to be some kind of an emergency where no money can be spent on anything but what they want. It's the ultimate poison pill.
Yeah, it is. And so, but there's really nothing that we can do about that except for say, hey, listen, this is what we're expecting you to do. I'm saying don't do that. That's about the best you can do. But there is something to be gained from this, and that is the experience. Now that you're expecting this to happen and you watch it play out and you go, oh, hey, wait a minute, somebody said that was going to happen. Then hopefully you have learned something from that you can use in future elections, not to return the same type of people. It's not the people. I mean, it's not people per se that's the issue. It's these kind of people. You could take somebody fresh off of the street who didn't know anything and go put them in there, and they may well turn into one of these people. But the thing is that these people, they pursued this job already with the mindset of furthering the goal of a greater funding for the county, from your pocket. And so hopefully we are going to put in there at least a couple of people who are not thinking in that way. And, because
that's how one of the candidates got involved with it in the first place. It was at a city council meeting. And I'd gotten up and said, just looked around the room. And I said, could you come on up here? And the guy comes up. I don't need to say the name. And I said, would you have voted for a sales tax for Grants Pass? And he said, no. I said, all right, then you already qualified to be a city councilor, right? Yeah. And I said, now, do you live in the city? No, I don't. And I said, well, I'm going to encourage you to run for county commissioner. And the guy did. Okay, we need regular folks now. You just go right ahead now, not our audience, but your neighbors, and vote for the person that has the nicest haircut or has the nicest attitude or seems like, well, there's somebody that can get along with Simon Hare and everybody else. And if that's what you want, there you go. And you can get a sign from us and we'll see that they get that. And then you can put that sign up and say, I like this middle of the road person, or I like this person that looks like they're absolutely going to vote for higher property taxes. Just keep in mind this meeting that we've been showing you over the last couple of nights. This is the equivalent of a kind of a fiscal Supreme Court around here. And if you're going to have 5 out of 6 of those people who are on the borderline or have always voted for higher taxes in the past and don't want to listen to the people and didn't then and are very unlikely doing, I'll do that from now on. Right, you're running for office. You can do that. But I'm death on people that are on the borderline. That's fairly relentless, Dale. Yeah, because this is a really important election. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. Listen, you have to change the composition of that board. You just saw 5-1 on a common sense thing that addresses the problem that you say that you want to deal with. That's unacceptable. And listen, if what you want is to have it to be 6-0, then listen, who it is that you need to elect to put in there is another person, just like somebody that we're getting rid of. But if you don't think that, if you think it's time for a change, the thing is that the people have been in control of the purse strings. We're the Congress. For the longest time, and we haven't been funding. We haven't been funding the executive branch here. We've
is
been
why they're so
shutting
frustrated.
down the government, for the lack of
Right.
a better term.
That's right. That's right. And so
Yes,
they
right,
listen,
exactly.
They want to have
So-
more votes. There's a delay. They don't want to
So
have more.
instead of giving them somebody else just like who they have, you need to put in, to put in some of the citizens here who have been voting no. Put some of those guys in.
That's what our vote is. And even if we're all insane, that's our vote. So you're going to have to stick with our vote. I don't want to stick with our vote, but you're going to have to, because this is America. Thank you for joining us tonight. Boy, this series of budget committee meetings is just the perfect time. We're leading into the new leadership, potentially new leadership. Be careful that the people that you're picking, the two that you're picking, are part of new leadership. That's my admonition to you. And please, okay, you already know pretty much what you're going to do. Most of us have our ballots by now. Talk to your neighbor. They haven't decided what they want to do. You know that's true. Well, I like this guy's haircut. I like that woman's, the fundamental decisions that are going to be made this next time around cannot be done with one fiscal conservative. It's your choice. Talk to your neighbors.